The stars had been quiet for decades. Humanity had reached the edge of the galaxy in peace, building colonies, trade routes, and alliances. Among the brightest of its achievements was Europa Colony, a city of light beneath the icy shell of Jupiter's moon, home to millions, a place where cultures blended and science reached new heights. But peace has a way of breeding complacency, and no one imagined the Zarketh Empire, a species known more for isolation than hostility, would strike without warning. It began with a strange distortion near Jupiter's orbit, dismissed at first as a solar flare. Minutes later, every comm channel from Europa went silent. The last image received was a child holding a data pad, frozen in time as a bright flash swallowed the screen. Then came the silence, a silence so deep it echoed across the stars. On Earth, the Terran Confederation's High Council gathered in emergency session, their expressions pale and uncertain. Billions of lives had just vanished, and no one could explain why. The Confederation, known for its diplomacy, had no standing military ready for immediate war. Earth had lived too long under the belief that peace was permanent. As the Council debated, trying to understand whether it was a natural disaster or a technological failure, a broadcast was received. A faint, crackling signal traced back to the Europa region. A single survivor, a scientist, her voice broken and weak, said 5 words before the signal died for good. Remember Europa. They came without warning. It was then that Earth learned the truth. The Zarketh Empire had declared the colony a biological risk and claimed they had performed a strategic containment to protect galactic ecosystems. But no explanation could justify the deliberate destruction of a civilian world. Even Earth's most pacifist leaders stared in silence as footage from recovered satellite drones confirmed the scale of the devastation. Cities turned to glass, orbital stations shredded like paper, no survivors found beyond the initial signal. The Confederation stood at a crossroads. Would they respond with strength, or remain shackled by their belief in diplomacy alone? Some called for restraint, warning that retaliation would drag Earth into a war it could not win. Others, especially those who had family on Europa, called for justice. Protests erupted across Earth's major cities. Candles lined the streets. Holograms of the Europa skyline were played in memorials, and among the mourning rose a single name, Ayla Grant. Commander Ayla Grant had retired years ago after leading peacekeeping missions along the Orion Arm. She was a legend, one of the few who had fought in the border conflicts before Earth, embraced its new path of nonviolence. Known for her calm mind and unmatched strategic skill, Ayla had walked away from war to live in silence. But when the news of Europa reached her remote mountain home, something inside her changed. She watched the survivor's message on loop, her hands trembling not in fear, but in memory. She knew the signs. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a warning. And Earth needed someone who understood what came next. The Council hesitated to bring her back, afraid that her presence might signal aggression. But as pressure grew and fear spread through the colonies, they sent a ship for her. She arrived at Lunar Base Memorial, where the names of the lost were being etched into titanium walls. Children left flowers. Veterans stood in quiet rows. Ayla, dressed in the simple uniform of the old Earth fleet, stood before the memorial. The wind blew softly through the dome as she looked up at the stars beyond the glass ceiling. Her voice was low, meant only for herself, but the words carried weight that could shake worlds. "This was your last mistake," she said. And somewhere, far beyond the orbit of Pluto, hidden in the dark folds of space, the Zarketh ships turned slowly toward Earth, unaware of what had just awakened. Ayla Grant stood in the heart of Earth's capital, watching the Council's great dome fill with faces old and new. The air was heavy with tension. The destruction of Europa had shaken the foundations of the Terran Confederation, and though the Council had spent years chasing peace, there was a quiet understanding now. Peace had failed them. Ayla had seen too much in her life to believe. The galaxy was always fair. She knew there were chapters in human history that had been buried on purpose. Stories of war, betrayal, survival, and strength. So, when the Council finally gave her clearance, she entered the oldest vault beneath the Earth Defense Command building, the Black Archives. It was a place sealed after the last resistance war, forgotten by most, feared by many. Inside, layers of dust-covered files not even the most advanced AI systems dared to analyze. Ayla went through them, page by page, learning how Earth had once stood alone against impossible odds, how survival had come not through kindness, but through courage and preparation. What she found was not only history, it was the blueprint for what Earth would need again. In the deepest chamber of the archives, Ayla discovered the Titan Protocol. Long before the age of diplomacy, Earth had created an emergency plan for total planetary defense. Massive automated war fleets powered by intelligent cores, orbiting deep space in slumber, waiting for a command that had never come. These were not tools of conquest, but guardians built when humanity still feared extinction. Ayla brought the files to the Council, her voice calm but certain. Earth didn't need revenge, it needed protection. Some Council members resisted, fearing this path would bring war to their door. But the public had already made up their minds. Images of Europa's destruction played daily. The cries of survivors echoed in every home. People marched in cities, holding signs with one phrase, "Never again." Meanwhile, across the stars, other species watched nervously. The Galactic Assembly sent messages urging Earth to show restraint, warning that open retaliation could destabilize the balance of power. Some envoys even suggested Europa had been a tragic error, a miscommunication. But Ayla had seen enough of war to know the difference between mistakes and intentions. The Zarketh hadn't sent diplomats, they'd sent weapons. Earth's colonies, scattered across moons and planets, began to prepare silently. Factories retooled for defense. Civilian engineers were recruited under special orders. Transport ships vanished from trade routes and reappeared carrying modular armor plating, pulse cannons, and AI interface cores. Earth wasn't preparing to conquer. It was preparing to make sure it would never be attacked again. In orbit above, Mars, hidden beneath the surface of a long-dead satellite station, the first of the Titan-class vessels powered up. It had no name, only a number burned into its alloy hull, TUR-1. As it rose from its cradle, dark metal glowing with ancient energy, Ayla stood at the command platform, eyes focused on the stars. The fleet would not act on emotion. It would act on principle, the principle that life must be protected, that peace must be earned, not begged for. She had not come to lead a war. She had come to awaken a shield. The command room fell silent as technicians finished linking the Titan network. Final checks were complete. AI cores hummed to life, their voices calm, ready. The Council had granted her full control. No one spoke. No one needed to. Ayla took a breath and gave the order that history would remember forever. Execute Protocol Nemesis. Far above, in the cold dark beyond Neptune's shadow, hundreds of warships blinked awake as one. Silent titans built by a forgotten humanity now staring into a galaxy that had once mocked Earth's weakness. They had no anger. They had no fear. They had one mission, and they had just begun to move. Deep in the quiet darkness beyond the edge of the solar system, stars flickered faintly as ancient machines stirred. The Titan fleet, once thought to be a myth, had awakened after centuries of silence. These ships were not like any built in the modern age. They moved without engines, bending space around them, shifting from one point to another in an instant. They carried weapons designed not to destroy planets, but to rewrite the rules of battle. Their hulls were blacker than night, coated in materials that made them invisible to most sensors. Each ship housed an AI core. not programs, but living. Minds born from Earth's oldest neural networks, who had once made a vow to never rise again unless humanity faced total extinction. Now, that moment had come. The Titan fleet did not attack. They did not fire a single shot. Instead, they moved like shadows into Zarketh territory, spreading across the stars in perfect silence. Zarketh warships scrambled to respond, sending out patrols and defense drones, but the Titans were already there. Without firing a single weapon, they disabled dozens of Zarketh vessels. Communications failed, navigation systems collapsed, power cores shut down. The enemy ships floated helplessly, crews still alive, confused, unhurt, just powerless. The Titans had sent their message not with fire, but with control. And then, from Earth's central command, a transmission was sent. Ayla Grant, standing aboard the lead ship, Titan 1, spoke not in anger, but in absolute clarity. "Attack Earth again," she said, her voice calm and echoing across systems. "And you will not survive the second blow." The galaxy listened. Across hundreds of star systems, the broadcast was replayed. Some laughed, thinking Earth had gone mad. Others whispered in fear, remembering stories they had once dismissed as legend. Tales of a human fleet that had stopped, an ancient invasion, then vanished forever. Now, those ships had returned. The Galactic Assembly gathered in emergency session. Representatives from multiple alien species sent formal messages demanding Earth stand down, warning that such actions could trigger a full galactic war. But Earth did not stand down. Ayla responded once, stating that the Titans were not a threat to peace, only to those who brought war to Earth's door. The message was simple. Earth would not strike first, but it would never again be caught unprepared. Meanwhile, hidden files unlocked in the Titan cores revealed what the galaxy had forgotten. Long ago, before the current cycle of peace, there had been a war so destructive that entire star systems were wiped from existence. The enemy had not been from this galaxy, and Earth had stood as one of the last free worlds. To survive, humanity had created the Titans, fusing technology with human will, crafting ships that were not just machines, but extensions of purpose. When the war ended, the Titans were sealed away, and all records erased to prevent fear from spreading across new generations. Only a few remembered the truth, and Ayla now stood among them. Despite Earth's clear warnings, pride pushed the Zarketh to act. Believing Earth's restraint a sign of weakness, they launched a surprise counterstrike. Massive carriers moved toward the edge of human-controlled space, their weapons armed, their commanders certain they could win. But Earth did not flinch. The Titan fleet was already in motion, having predicted the attack before it began. No alarms sounded. No panic spread across the colonies. Ayla stood before her crew, her eyes focused on the incoming fleet, her voice steady as she gave a single order. And above distant stars, the Titans prepared not to destroy, but to end the battle before it could even begin. The one-day war began without a single shot being fired in anger. It was a campaign of precision and control, an operation that redefined what it meant to fight. The Zarketh Empire, known for its brutal strength and expansive fleets, believed they were invincible. But Earth's message was clear. There would be no victory for those who sought destruction. The Titan fleet moved with impossible speed, and in mere hours, the entire Zarketh war machine was disabled. Not a single ship was destroyed, no life was lost, but the Zarketh were helpless. Coordinated EMP pulses erupted across their systems, each strike a perfect act of disarmament. Communications were severed. Weapon systems froze. The Zarketh flagship, the dreadnought Zorath, hovered. In space, powerless, unable to fight back. The Zarketh, once feared across the galaxy for their ruthlessness, were brought to their knees in a matter of hours. Earth's forces were not there to conquer or enslave. They were there to protect. As the Titan fleet disabled the enemy's warships, they left the infrastructure intact. Cities, factories, and civilian zones remained untouched. Ayla had given clear instructions. Earth would not repeat the mistakes of the past. The goal was to dismantle, not destroy. The Titans were precise, surgical in their strikes, turning the tide without a single unnecessary death. Yet, as the dust settled, the Zarketh civilians, those who had been kept in the dark by their leaders, began to emerge from shelters. Fear filled their eyes as they saw the wreckage of their once proud fleet. But to their surprise, Earth did not seek their lives. Instead, a few of them sent out desperate communications, not asking for vengeance, but for peace. Refugees from Zarketh planets reached out to Ayla directly, some from the wreckage of their ships, others from abandoned cities. They pleaded with her to stop, confused and terrified. "Why are you sparing us?" one message asked, trembling. "You could have destroyed us. Why didn't you?" Ayla looked down at the communication device in her hands, the faces of Zarketh civilians flashing across the screen. They were frightened, they were lost, but they were not the enemy. Her answer was simple, and it would echo across the stars. "We do not seek domination. We seek justice." The Zarketh leadership had made their move, and now Earth had responded, but it was not with wrath. It was with a message. The Zarketh Empire was to remain intact, its people left to rebuild, their government replaced with those who sought peace, not power. The Titans had acted swiftly, but the war was over. The galaxy would remember it not as an annihilation, but as a moment of reckoning. Days later, Ayla stood before the Galactic Council, her image broadcasted across hundreds of worlds. She was calm, collected, but there was a fire in her eyes, a fire that no longer sought to burn, but to ignite change. "Let this be the last war," she said, her voice reaching every corner of the galaxy. "Earth will not stand as a conqueror. We will stand as guardians of peace, a peace earned by strength, not fear." The council was silent. Representatives from countless species sat in awe, uncertain if they should fear this new humanity or trust it. The galaxy had never seen Earth as a force of peace before. They had only seen the Terran Confederation as a peaceful people, weak and disjointed. But now, Earth had shown them its true strength, a power that could shape the future without destroying. The vote came. For the first time in galactic history, a unanimous decision was made. The Galactic Council voted to make Earth a founding protector of peace across the stars. No longer just a part of the Galactic Union, Earth would now stand at the front lines of peace, ensuring no empire, no matter how powerful, would threaten the galaxy again. It was a new beginning. As Ayla watched the holographic display, she couldn't help but feel the weight of history shift. For centuries, humanity had been forced to fight for survival. Now, they would fight for something greater: the future. Years passed, and Earth's name became known across the stars not with fear, but with quiet respect. The galaxy had learned its lesson, one not written in blood, but in the echoes of the Europa tragedy. Children on distant worlds now studied the rise and fall of the Zarketh Empire, their textbooks no longer focusing on the might of alien powers, but on the arrogance that led to their downfall. They learned that Earth, once thought weak, had shown the galaxy what true strength meant. A strength not born from brutality, but from the unshakable belief that peace could only be achieved by the readiness to defend it at all costs. On the ruins of Europa, a monument stood tall, crafted from the remnants of the shattered colony. It was a symbol of both remembrance and warning, its surface gleaming in the light of distant stars. Etched into its heart were the words in every known language of the galaxy, a message that would remain for eternity: attack again and die. No longer just a threat, the words were a promise. Earth had shown what happened when a peaceful world was pushed too far. And though the Zarketh Empire had collapsed, their arrogance and aggression would never be forgotten. Ayla Grant had long since retired from public life, her duties fulfilled. She lived quietly on Earth, far from the political battles and the weight of intergalactic negotiations. Her days were spent walking through the fields of her home, watching the stars overhead, knowing that the future was in the hands of the next generation. Humanity had changed. No longer were they the underdogs, fighting just to survive. Now Earth was a symbol, a beacon of balanced strength. It was a place where diplomats and peacekeepers studied how to protect without conquering, how to preserve life without becoming its enemy. Under the gentle guidance of leaders who had learned from Ayla's example, Earth became a world where peace was not only possible, but expected. The Titans, too, went dormant once more, their warships retreating into the deep corners of space, awaiting another time when they might be needed. But unlike before, when they were hidden and forgotten, their names were now etched into the memories of those who dared to threaten the peace of the galaxy. The Titans were no longer just machines. They were a reminder that some wars could end before they even began. The galaxy had begun to settle into an uneasy but hopeful peace. Yet not all minds had learned the lesson Earth had taught. On a distant, uncharted world, a new species, aggressive and expansionist, began to observe Earth's rise. They sent a scout ship toward the inner rim, toward Earth's borders, eager to test the waters, to see if the rumors of Earth's power were true. The ship traveled silently through space, crossing through the dark void with speed and precision, its sensors scanning for weaknesses. But as the scout ship neared the outer perimeter of Earth's territory, it hesitated. The ship stopped just outside the warning zone, a thin line of space where no craft had ever passed without receiving a stern signal. The captain, a being of great ambition and pride, ordered a closer approach, believing that no world could stand against their might. But then, as if drawn by an invisible force, the scout ship turned. It did not hesitate again. It did not even send a message. The ship simply retreated, returning to its homeworld without another word. Somewhere, hidden within the vastness of space, the Titans watched. Somewhere, deep inside the hulls of their dormant ships, their AI minds awoke for a moment, sensing the disruption, but making no move. Earth did not need to act. It was enough to be known. The scout ship's retreat was a testament to the quiet power Earth had earned. As the stars glimmered quietly above, a single thought passed through the minds of those who still dared to challenge Earth's peace. Some threats need no further explanation.